Hello, my name is Howard Knepper, and I'm a Republican running for the U.S. Senate from the state of Florida in the general election. Every Sunday, I will be doing a video about the current events. So I would like you to every Sunday, please look at my YouTube channel so you can see my views on the weekly events. I want to talk to you now about Congress in general. We have 435 House of Representatives, and that's called the lower chamber, as most of you may know. And we have 100 senators. And then we, of course, have the President of the United States, and between all three, that's how we have a bill that's passed into law. But I have said over and over again that it's very difficult for a House of Representative that comes in to Congress for only 2 years. And then after that U.S. Congressman has been serving for, let's say, the first year, he or she has to start getting ready to get reelected for another term. Now, this is a constitutional issue, but I think that it's an issue that does concern the gridlock that can happen in Congress. Let me give you an example. And this is what I have always said about my opponent, Marco Rubio. When you go to Congress, or you're a senator, the first thing you have to do, in my opinion, is you have to be well liked. You have to be a listener. You can't get frustrated, as Mr. Rubio did, where he stated that very clearly. He was frustrated with the system, but that's our system. You have to get to know the other senators and all the House of Representatives. You may, in my opinion, I may not always have a bill to bring to the floor of the Senate, but I want to help other bills that are being brought to the Senate floor from House of Representatives and other senators. They may help the state of Florida. Most important is, I think it's important to have almost 100% voting record. I know I would have a 100% voting record. And in Mr. Rubio's case, he didn't have it. He said clearly that a lot of times his vote would not have changed the outcome of a vote that was on the floor. I've repeatedly said that I disagree with that, because if his vote was not important, what if everybody thought that their vote wasn't important? He wouldn't have been elected. Also, I think that when you're on the Senate floor, you see other senators waiting around for hours and hours to vote, and also House of Representatives. But a lot of times they're engaging with each other, getting to know each other. And I'm sure there were many times where they have said, "Where is our Florida senator? Let's discuss with him an idea of a bill or to push a bill." But he wasn't there. And most importantly, I think you lose respect. In my TV commercials, I've made it very clear that he should be removed from office because he had the worst voting record. There may be other reasons why he didn't show up on the Senate floor. I think that some of those reasons may have been that he had a family back in Florida, and that he wanted to maybe perhaps have to spend more time. I think it was expensive. I think it is expensive to be able to have living expenses in Washington. I don't know, that might have been part of it. He also simply may not have liked being in Washington. But the bottom line to that issue is that the office is the people's office in Florida. And it's a privilege to be sent to Washington as a U.S. Senator. It's a privilege. You can't get frustrated. I've said before, if you have your own business and you get frustrated and you don't show up for work, you're only hurting yourself. But when you are a U.S. Senator, you're hurting millions of people. Now, I could go through a litany of things that have happened in Florida during the 6 years that Mr. Rubio was the senator. And there's things that could have been done for the state of Florida. from everything from education to the environment to security, homeland security, the infrastructure, things that he could have been pushing, but he didn't do it. But let me go back to the gridlock in Washington. We all know that decade after decade, we hear the same thing, that everybody's going to work together. But one of the problems that I see is the 2-year term with the House of Representatives. If I'm a senator and I'm on the Senate floor and I'm in Washington working hard on either a bill that I want to present and get passed into law, or maybe another senator's bill or House of Representative, I'm now speaking and working on getting that bill passed. And then that House of Representative is busy working on his re-election, and he's not even going to be there possibly 2 years later. So again, it's a constitutional issue, but I do believe that a 2-year term for a House of Representative is part of the reason we have the gridlock. What we can do about it, I don't know, but it is a problem. We also know that from one of my other infomercials, I talked about that House of Representatives, that when they come into, a junior congressman comes to Washington, they're sent to boiler rooms and offered all kinds of gifts if they can raise money for either party, both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I don't think that that is productive. Whether that's circumventing the law by taking them out of their federal capital offices, I don't know. I believe that it could be circumventing the law. But what's most important is that Congress works together. I know that if I were in the Senate, I would, my first priority would be to try to get along with every single senator, vote 100% of the time, try to get to know every single House of Representative, and not only fight for bills that I believe are important to the state of Florida and the United States and the American people. Other bills that are sitting there, they are not being moved along. I would work with other senators and other House of Representatives to see that bills are put through. But the most important thing is that I would be there working for you, the people from Florida, and I would be working very hard to make sure that the American people and you, the Floridian people, are being represented by me, and that laws are being passed to help the people of Florida, which ultimately, because they're federal laws, it helps everybody in our country. Congress is the greatest body in the world for freedom and justice for all people. There is no other Congress and no other people resilient like we are. We are not perfect, but we try to be a more perfect union. We have the greatest Constitution, the longest democratic Constitution in history. And I, as one American, am proud to be an American, and I still believe that we have to have the strongest borders in the world, but all people are welcome to come here. Of course, we can't let anybody just come in without being checked and vetted, but it's important that we continue to be the beacon for hope for people around the world. It's important to make sure that people can come to America and making sure the American people are safe. But all people are welcome to America. No matter what race you are, what religion you are, the most important thing is that we continue to be, as I said, a beacon of hope for freedom for all people around the world. That's what makes America a great country. The American people in their history have always been there for the people less fortunate around the world. So we understand very clearly, and we've heard it from both presidential candidates, we've heard it over and over from everyone, that we just can't let anybody come in. That's true. We have to make sure, as I've said before, all of our borders, especially the southern border, Building a wall is a great idea. I'm not against it, but that takes a long time. So while that's being built, we have to reach out to the Mexican government. We have to have more intelligence. We have to perhaps put, if possible, part of our military on that border. So I'm not against the wall, but there's a lot of things we have to do while that wall is being built. And reaching out to the Mexican government and having more border patrol and listening to the border patrol that's there now. But Congress has to address it. And we must have the strongest security in all of our airports, our cruise ports, our railways, and we have to step it up. And if I were sent to the Senate, I would make sure that that's a priority to push very hard, that we have the most secure borders in the world, the most secure airports in the world, but we also, at the same time, have to have people get in line and know that they can come to America, the greatest country in the world, and welcome all people to come, to have hope, have their dreams fulfilled, have justice and liberty. That there is nothing better than that. Nothing better than justice, freedom, and liberty in your life. Thank you, and good night.